Hello, this is the backup video for Wednesday, the 30th of September 2020 in European history. Okay, you all should have your notes out and ready to go, as well as anything, anything that you owe should be into the shelf. Okay, let me get this out of the way because we're actually going to be into look at maps. First off, no, you weren't, Joe. No, you weren't. Shut up, man. I don't know if you got a chance to see last night's debate. Uh, as you probably know, I'm a pretty strong Trump supporter, but I don't think anyone looked good. The moderator tried, but it was a street fight, verbally. And I don't. Did any of you see it? Do you have impressions? Yeah.
I watched like a little bit of it, and I just came in, and Trump made a joke about Biden, and I'm like, that was funny. But like, my dad's like, oh no, this has been terrible. It's just been like this the entire time, and I guess,
Yeah.
I was doing homework.
Well, you probably used your time better. I watched the whole thing. I got a few new gray hairs. Yes. Did you? Yeah.
So I watched the whole thing, and I thought a lot of it was kind of childish. It's all the bickering.
Yeah. Look, again, not good. Neither of them looked good. You guys, if I had you do a debate, you would all do better because none of you would sink to that level.
Every time they had they were given a topic to talk about, they immediately went on to the next topic, and then that continued throughout the entire debate.
It is. On one level, I don't think we really need a moderator. If you're going to do that, see that the pettiness, I think, would have worked itself out if you would just put them both up there and said, "Go at it for 90 minutes." And just they'd go back and forth, and these things do tend to find their own level. But neither campaign wanted to do that. So instead, we have a moderator who's trying to control two uncontrollable men. This is the thing. Neither one of them really wanted to be controlled. They were instead going after one another. It'll be interesting to see the next time they debate whether they moderate anything. And they might not. Yes.
I mean, I think I was mainly just thinking, think someone would take the high road and just start actually talking about something meaningful, but it just continued to be very childish throughout the whole thing.
There were a few policy discussions and disagreements, but it was so submerged in a sea of petty childishness. I agree. It's hard to see. I think, for example, getting rid of critical race theory trainings in federal government is a great idea because critical race theory isn't getting rid of racism. It's replacing anti-black racism with anti-white racism. It boggles the mind. And instead of saying that, they just... Yeah. So I don't know what an undecided voter would have made of that.
I don't usually watch the debates, but I watched one a while back, and I was I got into 2 minutes of it, and I was like, this is so stupid. Why am I even watching this? And so it just imagine all the people that did watch it, it just makes them not want to vote.
Yeah.
Because there's just not a good option at this point.
I didn't vote for Trump in 2016 because I didn't see a good option then. I have since decided that even though Trump may not be a great human being, as a conservative, he's governed more conservatively than any president since Reagan. He's more conservative than either Bush. So I'm voting for him on that reason. But I'm not voting for him because he's a well-grounded, stable, dignified man. That's not him. And if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for that, Biden had an opportunity to try to rise above it. But Biden has a similar debating style. So it just...
It's just sad because now if you think back then George Washington what it was supposed to be and now what it is, it's kind of just it kind of just went downhill from the start.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the people around both men will take them aside and say, "Look, you're not helping yourself.
Yeah.
There's got to be a point where you act like an adult." Because among other jobs, the president has his finger on the nuclear trigger, and you don't want somebody who just that'll show him. It's so no, I don't think my guy looked well. I don't think the other guy looked well. If you like reality television where people are nasty to one another, then it would have been fun, I guess, if the country wasn't on the line.
Yeah.
It's just, man, I don't. Oh, 90 minutes. It was over 90 minutes. I know this because it's at the clock. Yes.
So I didn't watch the debate, but honestly, they're both old men that could drop dead any second. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that. Although with modern medical technology, look, I'm not a liberal Democrat, but if I was a progressive, I would be furious at the Democrat Party. In 2016, they had some good candidates, and in 2020, they had some good candidates. They chose Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Why? There was, had it been a young Democrat who was filled with idealism and ideas, I wouldn't have voted for them. But at least I think they would have had a better showing. To put up, yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. And again, it didn't look good. It just didn't look good. Sir.
This is just a personal thing, but I think they should have shook hands at the beginning.
I missed that. Look, a huge deal for me is being good to the people that disagree with me. I try to be good to the people that disagree with me to the extent I can. I'm going to be honest with them as best I can. I'm not going to hide who I am because I don't think hiding who I am serves anyone's interest. I think it infantilizes people. I think you've got to be able to deal with people who really think differently than you, and you've got to learn how to treat them with dignity and treat yourself with dignity and treat the situation with dignity. To me, it is important to try to get along with people, especially if they have opposite views, because I think that's what makes America great. The fact that they didn't do that, COVID, hand sanitizer. You shake and then you sanitize your hands. There are all sorts of things you could do. You could wear gloves. But I agree. I think something was lost. And I don't wonder. They still would have been like they were, even if they had shaken hands. But many people, in a situation where you've got to look somebody in the eye, grip their hand, and give them a firm handshake, that tends to bring out better things in people. Yeah, I missed that. Yes?
I just thinking about it, just imagine if someone held the ideal of treating other people that disagree with you the best way you can. Just imagine if we had a president that held that to
most of our presidents genuinely have.
Yeah.
Democrats and Republicans, for the most part, these men appreciate that you have to be able to deal with people on the other side of the aisle or very little is going to get done. And I also think that most of our presidents throughout history understand that the president is somebody that children look up to. And if you behave in a disgraceful fashion, and we've had presidents that did. President Nixon was impeached. President Clinton was impeached. We've had presidents who haven't risen to that. But I think whenever you're in the public eye, you've got to try at least to be somebody who's honorable, at least, to have integrity. They are who they are. The parties have nominated who they've nominated. Biden's been close to power. Trump has been in power. I can only hope and I actually believe that what we saw last night was the worst in both men. The pettiness, the squabbling, the thin-skinnedness, all that. I think it was the worst. I'm not a fan of Joe at all, but I think he has much better things inside of him that could have come out, and I believe that Trump does too. But that forum just didn't. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Next week, anyway, we got the vice presidential candidates. And Mike Pence is a very nice man. Like him or not, disagree with him or not, he is very cordial, very well-mannered, very dignified, very Midwestern. Kamala Harris is an attorney, a district attorney from California. But even, she's got to understand, too, that what happened last night is not the way she wants to go. So I think next week's debate will be more interesting in some respects. Anyway, thank you for your discussion. Those of you at home, if you want to talk about this tomorrow, I'll make time at the beginning of class. Okay, where we are now. Renaissance literally means the rebirth. It means rebirth. Renaissance, natal, the nativity. It's from the French for birth. So, I think it's French, probably Latin too. Renaissance is the rebirth of Christian knowledge, of the ancient Greco-Roman knowledge into a Christian context, and that's a definition you should know. The rebirth of the ancient Greek and Roman knowledge into a Christian context, into a Christian society. Now, whenever you take something out of its context and transplant it into a different one, it's going to change. If you have a group of people mountain hiking, and they've had nothing but trail mix for days, and somehow they become in range of a McDonald's, and they have a quarter pounder with cheese or whatever, a Big Mac. Compare that to a person at a banquet, like, a smorgasbord with all sorts of wonderful foods. You got prime rib, you got lasagna, and then there's a McDonald's quarter pounder with cheese or Big Mac. It's the same product, but I'll bet it'll taste a lot better if you're on that hike than if you are at a banquet and you have an option for much better food. In this case, this is one of the cultural transplants that really works. The ancient Greek and Roman knowledge comes out of a pagan context, and it is brought into a Christian context 1,000 years later, and it actually really does work. It changes things, and it reorients Western civilization. And we're going to talk about that. So, why North Italy and Spain? The answer is simple. In the late Middle Ages, the European Western civilization, Christendom, is more primitive than Islamic Arab civilization. Even after getting whacked in the head by the Mongols, the cities of Muslim Spain, North Africa, the Middle East are simply nicer places to live, with more knowledge, more education, better medicine, and our ancestors begin their renaissance through contact with this more advanced civilization. So Spain and Italy are the two places where this contact is most intense. Now you might think, well, isn't it true that the Ottoman Turks are advancing on Constantinople and marching into Europe? Yeah, that's true. But this front is actually much more warlike. There's much less cross-cultural exchange. It happens, but it's not the primary deal. In Spain, the Christians are conquering Islamic societies intact. And because of that, the Christians are able to absorb the advanced knowledge and skills and methods that the Muslims in Spain have. It's no accident that Spain and Portugal are going to become the superpowers of the next century or two, and it's because they absorb fully the more advanced Arab knowledge through a conquest. As the Ottomans are conquering the Christians basically are less advanced. They're more primitive. So the Ottomans are transplanting their culture into the Christian culture in its place. There's not that much exchange. Whereas the Spaniards are absorbing the more advanced Arab civilization in Spain. Why North Italy? Remember, the silk and spice trade goes through Damascus, Syria, and Cairo, Egypt. And the ships that carry the silks and spices from the Middle East into the heart of Europe are from Genoa, and they're from Venice. They are from this North Italian region because sea travel is so much easier and less expensive than land travel. So you bring it as far by sea as you can, and then you put it on land caravans to go around the Alps. North Italy, because this is a largely peaceful exchange, absorbs the knowledge in a much more effective fashion. It's like the difference between getting a shot into your veins, intravenous shot, I think it's called, than taking a pill. If you take a pill, the medicine will dissolve into your system eventually. But if you want to get the knowledge effectively and quickly, you take a shot. Well, the peaceful exchange of merchants and traders from Italy to the markets of the Middle East create a very effective transmission of cultural knowledge, technical skill, and so forth. So that's why Spain and North Italy, because they have the strong contact with the Islamic world. If you have questions, I'm going to assume you're going to ask them. What this rebirth does is it calls things into question that had been beyond questioning before now. It calls things into question that had been beyond questioning until now. For example, what is art? How can we depict God's creation on a flat canvas? What is government and society? In the opposed views that you had from chapter 12, you had Desiderius Erasmus, a Christian humanist, a thinker, who is arguing for a humane Christian ruler that does not take advantage of his people, but instead views leadership as service. It's a very medieval concept. It's a very Christian concept. It is the idea that God gives authority, but authority must be godly in return. Compare that to the much more pragmatic notions of Niccolò Machiavelli. You should remember Machiavelli, because you're going to read him, if you haven't already in English, in far more detail than here. Does anyone remember the basic thesis of The Prince by Machiavelli? Raise hands. Sam.
So like the idea behind them? Or-
What is Machiavelli saying at heart to his ruler, to the prince?
Oh dang, that's hard. Because
Go ahead and say what you have.
The most I remember is more so ruling by fear than by being loved.
Look. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, how he thought that it was more important to be feared than loved, and also he said there was a balance between fear and hate.
Yeah.
Because if you were feared, people also may respect you, but if you did unjust things to your people, then you would be hated.
One of the worst medieval policies ever is what was called prima nocta, or first night privileges, which in some backwards areas the nobles insisted upon. What prima nocta privilege was whenever anyone in the district got married, the local nobleman could sleep with the wife on the wedding night. Now, don't ask how this is somehow justified, but it's justified both in the old Celtic Druidical faith. They did have things like this. And a lot of people who called themselves Christians did this. But you know what it does? It makes the people hate you. It's not a question of fear. They hate. You are in love with someone, you marry someone, whether you're the bride or the groom, having Lord Jobo insist on having sex with the wife on wedding night is just, it's amazingly mind-ripping in its fury-inducing capacity. In other words, no wise ruler should ever do that. That's the sort of thing that Machiavelli advised against. Don't steal from your people in a way that's obvious. Don't mess with your people like the sexual thing. Don't do that, because then they'll hate you. So don't be hated. That's one of Machiavelli's things. But Machiavelli says, obviously, if you're a leader, it is best to be both loved and feared. The love inspires people to step beyond what they have to do for you, because they want you to succeed, because they identify with you, because they think that it is good and right, that you have legitimacy to rule them, and they want it all to work. So love can bring that out. Fear doesn't. But here's what fear brings out. Let's say you owe money to two people. Your mom and Big Nose Sam. Now, Big Nose Sam is actually the name of a mafiosi that ran organized crime in Springfield, Massachusetts back in the 60s. He was a real guy. My father-in-law knew him. Big Nose Sam was a scary guy, and Big Nose Sam, among other things, did loan sharking, which means he loaned unreliable people money, and then either got the money back. Well, no, he got the money back. It was just a question of whether the person giving him the money back would be healthy or not when that exchange finally happened. If you owe money to your mom or to a mafioso, who are you going to pay off first? It's obvious. Fear tells you what to do. Love can make people go above and beyond, but fear can make people do what they have to do, even when they don't want it. So if you have a choice as a leader, better to be feared than loved, but don't be hated. Now, is this at all from a Christian context? No. No. What it is, it's in harmony with a lot of thinking in the ancient world. So Machiavelli and his ideas on leadership is an example of how different the old Greek and Roman ideas were from those ideas rooted in Christian, Judeo-Christian morality that came out of the Middle Ages. Does anyone have any thoughts or questions about that? Okay. Let's see. So, when does the Middle Ages end? Well, there are three answers. There is the least known, which is Spain in 1492. Because Spain in 1492 completes the 700-year Reconquista. They finally drive the Muslims out of Spain. Granada, the last Islamic kingdom in Spain, is driven out in 1492 Anno Domini, and this is the culmination of a process that began early in the Islamic conquest. So that is probably the least likely answer anyone who's historically literate would give you. The conquest of Muslim Spain in 1492. Classicists who love the ancient world will be tempted to do what Edward Gibbon implied in his Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which is to talk about the Byzantine Empire as a continuation of ancient Rome through the Middle Ages. In 1453, the Ottoman Sultan uses heavy cannon to blast down the walls of Constantine, and in doing so, conquers Constantinople, turns it into Istanbul. That is the end of the Roman story as an empire, if you want to define it that way. It takes some contortions, intellectual contortions, to do so, but you can argue that Byzantium is a continuation of ancient Rome. It ends in 1453. So some people will argue that 1453 is the real end of the Middle Ages because the last gasp of Eastern Roman Empire finally falls. Middle Ages begin with the fall of Western Empire in 476. Most everyone agrees with that. Middle Ages end with the fall of Eastern Empire in 1453. Some people, but not many people, agree with that. The most common answer is when Queen Isabella of Spain, who is the dominant partner in that marriage, decides that she wants to celebrate driving the Muslims out of Spain, she gives the crazy Genovese captain, Cristoforo Colombo, some money. 3 old ships filled with people nobody really cares much about, and tells him to go to town, sail west, and to find to the east. So he does so. He gets back. There's a Portuguese that actually left before him called Labrador. His nickname was Labrador. But he discovered the frozen Labrador coast of eastern Canada, and he got back after Columbus. That did not change the world. You could argue, well, Leif Erikson was here 1,000 years ago. Yeah. 500 years before Columbus. Yeah. Nobody listened to the drunken Vikings telling their stories of the strange Vinland colony across the sea and the Redskins' failings that they fought. It didn't change the world. You could argue that the native arrival 10,000 years ago, yeah, obviously. But in terms of the history of the world and of Western civilization, it was Columbus's voyage that had the significance. Therefore, Columbus gets the credit for discovering the New World, and the Columbian voyage is what most people would say is the end of medieval times. So, having said that, we're going to do a little bit of basic geography, and then I'm going to shut down streaming so that we can correct quizzes and exams. First off, in Italy. So you look at your Italy map. We're going to start with Rome, the papal state. Right here is the city of Rome, and this sort of area around the knee and the back of the thigh of Italy, it's in your notes, is the papal state. So you'll be needing to identify these things. South of the papal state is the Kingdom of Aragon, which is later the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Aragon is going to be absorbed into Spain. So southern Italy is actually ruled by the Spanish in the late Middle Ages, or by the Aragonese, the Eastern Spaniards, and the city of Naples is their capital. So you got Rome in the center of Italy, around the knee and the back of the thigh. The booty area of Italy, the football it's kicking, and the football it once kicked is Aragon, or Spanish Italy, or the Kingdom of Sicily. What it's listed as in here. Let's see. Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. That'll work. The front of the thigh of Italy is Tuscany. Tuscany, T-U-S-C-A-N-Y. Tuscany is where Siena is. Tuscany is where Florence is. Tuscany is named after the Etruscans. Etruscans, Etruria, Tuscany. It is not where the sand people come from. That's a Star Wars reference for those of you who don't know. Tuscany is the heart of the Renaissance. It is where the most beautiful art, the most profligate art, the most orientation towards art is. Tuscany has Siena, it has Florence, it has Pisa. Okay. In front of Italy's leg is Genoa. Genoa controls this thin coastal strip. The city of Genoa is right here. Genoa is where Christopher Columbus comes from. I believe it's where salami comes from, Genoa salami. And it is where, where did Romeo and Juliet take place? Does anyone remember? Shakespeare, Romeo, Juliet? B? Anyway, it's somewhere in late medieval Italy. Genoa's great rival is Venice. So this is Venetia. Venetia in northeastern Italy, where the backside would be if this is a leg. So Venetia, and here's the city of Venice. And to the west of Venice is Lombardy, which is sort of north-central Italy in the Po River Valley. So, what do you need to know? Papal State, Kingdom of Two Sicilies, Tuscany, Genoa, Venice, Lombardy. Oh, that's the land. Ligurian Sea. The Ligurian Sea is south of Genoa and west of Tuscany. Ligurian Sea. L-I-G-U-R-A-N-I-A-N. L-I-G-U-R-I-A-N. Ligurian Sea. The Tyrrhenian Sea is west of Naples, east of Sardinia, north of Sicily. The Tyrrhenian Sea. T-Y-R-H-E-N-N-I-A-N. T-Y-R-H-E-N-N-I-A-N. Tyrrhenian Sea. Now, these are both subsets of the Mediterranean Sea, which is the big sea that separates Africa from Europe. So the Mediterranean Sea includes the Tyrrhenian Sea and the Ligurian Sea in general terms. Mediterranean. And back behind Italy is the Adriatic Sea. The Adriatic Sea. A-D-R-I-A-T-I-C. Adriatic Sea. So, I'm going to point and you're going to say.
Papal States. Two Sicilies.
Two Sicilies. Papal States, two Sicilies.
Tuscany.
Tuscany.
Venice.
Venetia.
Lombardy.
And
Genoa.
Genoa. Good. I guess I'll do the main Europe map tomorrow. So, those of you online, ta-ta for now. See you tomorrow, and find something productive to do. Why am I forgot? The timer is over here.